we're very cognizant of the fact that learners are so divergent, and I'm not even going to use the term neurodivergent. It is a different kind of learner. I think the idea of traditional assessments it just doesn't work anymore. Technology should be a tool for learning. It shouldn't drive the learning. That's what oftentimes people think.
So I think, we would all really love to know a little bit about, first of all, your journey, a little bit of your background. So I don't know if you could tell us about how you got to where you are.
That's a long story. Just to give you a little context on Marymount, we're a nursery through 12 all-girls school on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. My role specifically is I'm the chair of the creative technology department, and we offer both synchronous and asynchronous courses. I facilitate all of our asynchronous courses. So we had students, we've always had a big push for entrepreneurship, design thinking. And so we had students that took entrepreneurship, which focuses on like the business model, like that. And what we found was that students like that, but then they were asking like, what comes next? So we were introduced to Startup Wars, I'm going to say 2 years ago.
Yeah.
We piloted it with a couple of students. They really liked the fact that instead of thinking about, I have to come up with a pitch like I'm going to be on Shark Tank, it was more like I'm going to be running my own business. So we added a course the beginning of this year called Applications of Entrepreneurship. So, and originally they could either do Startup Wars or there was another platform that we offered. Both of them were really good, but we decided that based on the feedback we got that the students were really more keen on Startup Wars. So we use that solely as the platform for our Applications of Entrepreneurship class.
Well, yeah, I'm happy to see that students liked it. And yeah, I think the question that comes up a lot based on what I've seen as well is, what comes next? Because it's not really that easy for a high school student, like especially for, to go to class and then be like, I am going to become an entrepreneur now, right? I mean, their age, they maybe have the experience or the money. But I think that's definitely like a very valuable approach. And Eric, so how long have you been at the school?
This is year number 28.
28. Wow, that's amazing. And before that, were you involved in education as well, or has that always been your field?
My actual background is meteorology, so I'm also the school meteorologist.
Oh, wow.
So I've been a science educator since the early 1990s.
Right.
And then because I'm really fascinated by the intersection between science and technology in terms of teaching, I started doing more ways of weaving technology into my physics classes, and then stepped out of the classroom at the end of last year, focused solely on creative technology. So,
gotcha.
And what we call creative technology, I think other schools would call STEM, but we changed the name specifically because we don't integrate science, technology, engineering, and math in a way that people who use the word STEM actually do that. So,
oh, interesting.
So ours is more about the design process and helping students become what we always say is creative, confident learners and creators.
That's amazing. I love that. And well, so since you mentioned you stepped out of that role since last year, right? Before that, when you were like focused a little bit more on the entrepreneurship side, what would you say was like your approach to teaching entrepreneurship? Like, how did you usually go about it?
Well, the irony is, I've never taught entrepreneurship.
Okay.
My colleague Don Buckley is our entrepreneurship. I wouldn't dare to get anywhere close to his shoes. He's so good at it.
Okay.
So the reason I took over, the reason why I facilitate applications in entrepreneurship is because it's asynchronous. So
Gotcha.
I've learned a lot from Don about teaching entrepreneurship. I learned a lot about entrepreneurship from doing Startup Wars myself.
Oh, okay.
And I've been in enough of Don's classes that I know the business canvas model and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And thinking about really entrepreneurship is less about entrepreneurship per se, but more about how do you build that creative mindset and how do you help your students. We so often focus on students being convergent thinkers, like they have to get to the right answer.
Yeah.
Our focus is much more on how do we help them become divergent thinkers? How do they look at possibilities? So that's one of the reasons we like Startup Wars, is because there's no very specific pathway for them to follow. It makes it a challenge for them because they're often looking for the specific pathway to follow. If they don't have that, they often don't know what to do. So that's really our goal, is like we want them to develop a creative mindset, and we want them to be divergent thinkers.
I love that. I mean, I think it's definitely great to make them think outside the box. When they pursue their interests, it's more likely that they will feel a passion for it, right? More engagement, probably better results. And I was curious about this. So, with Don, who's also a great person, I've met him a few times already. What would you say is kind of like a big challenge for like educators of entrepreneurship right now, based on what you know?
Because everybody, and I don't say this as a criticism of the show, but because I think everybody knows Shark Tank, they want everything to be Shark Tank. And the students think they're going to, like, I'm going to come up with something and I'm going to make $1 million and everything's going to be great. And that's nice. That's nice aspiration, right? But I think one thing that gets lost in that message is for that one person that's on Shark Tank that has one idea that sells, there were 4,000 other ideas that came before that.
Right.
And that's really what we want them to think about. Like we focus on like the difference between innovation and invention, that there are very few inventions. There are a lot more innovations. But even to get to an innovation that's successful, you may have 4,000 failures before that. So my recommendation, though, is if you're interested in teaching entrepreneurship, teach it, right? You still do Shark Tank in your class, right? You can still do the design thinking process and have them pitch something at the end. Everybody can do that. And every student has the capability to walk around their school and identify problems that they want to solve and say, like, here's a solution to the problem that I want to solve. So, for example, the room that I'm in, there's an issue with one of the ducts that lets cold air into the room, which the students discovered when they were in here as like a student ambassador for admissions. Our engineering class, they had to design a solution to a problem in school. So they chose the one in this room, talked to like the plant manager and the facilities manager about what caused the problem, how it could be solved. They proposed some solutions and they just pitched it to them yesterday. So I also think having the problem students need to solve needs to be purposeful. They need to have like real clients. If it's just one of those like pie in the sky, kind of like here's a fictional problem, kids aren't going to adapt to that. They're not going to be interested in that. So let them pick the problems that they want to solve. Let them pitch the solutions. And if at all possible, put those solutions into action. I think that's the best thing that you can do.
Right. I love that. I mean, that's really what it comes to when like an entrepreneur is solving problems, right? And validating the problems and eventually, hopefully turn that into something they can sell, whether it's a product or a service.
And many of our students, or I should say more and more of our students, are entrepreneurs now. They have little side hustles that they're working on.
And that actually leads me to something I was curious about. Do you have any like specific success stories from one of your students that you think stands out?
We had so we've been doing entrepreneurship here at least 10 years, and
Okay.
one of the projects we did years ago, Don brought this to the school, was it was the Staples Back to School Challenge. The students designed products for Staples for back to school. And he did with another school in Brooklyn, where those products actually ended up on the shelves at Staples.
No way.
Phenomenal. And then when our students did it, they had their products. Staples was just about to select which product they were going to pick, and then the program fell apart for a number of reasons. So that was sort of like, talk about the kids, like those kind of things happen. But one of the students, and Don's very good about bringing in young entrepreneurs to talk to the students. One student worked on this was a while ago. It was, I believe it was an allergy pen, or it might have been something related to diabetes that was in a little wallet. And it would help when students went off to college, how they could understand the allergies and that they might be like how their allergies might impact eating in the school dining hall. And she got a grant from, I want to say, Tommy Hilfiger for a substantial amount of money.
Wow.
Like, put that into practice. And she came back a couple of times to talk about it. And then I think what happens with a lot of students too is they get tired of it and they're like, okay, I'm ready to go on to the next thing. So I'm not exactly sure how far she took that. She's probably on her 12th next idea already. So, but like, those are the kind of things, she was a great student, student. And like, it was, again, it went back to something that was personal to her because she had food allergies.
Right. I love that philosophy you have at Marymount, and it really looks like, you give the students the creative freedom, but you also push them just enough for them to take the next step, right? I like that. And another question I had was, when you've helped facilitate startup boards, or even with Don, is there anything in particular, like any change you saw with the students, or any reaction? Like, for example, the first time they played it, how did that go?
So one thing specific to startup wars is this was challenging for me as a teacher. Like, there's no curriculum that goes along with it. So I sort of had to build my own.
Okay.
And it's been working good so far. It's a 4 or 5 module course that they do.
Okay.
And for the first module, it's like playtime. Like, you just play around with things, start up your business, see what you can do. And they all came to me. We have 5 students in the class. They're like, I couldn't make $10,000. Like, I went bankrupt more than once. And I'm like, that's okay. Because what they immediately think is that their grade is tied to the fact that they can make $10,000.
Right.
And then for the second module they do, which they're just finishing up now, they had a choice, and I have to reference this because to look it up.
Okay.
They have two choices. They can either play it smart by putting profit first, or then they have to increase revenue without crashing their company. And they do that by picking 2 strategies, so they can change the price, test marketing strategies, focus on one product versus multiple products, lean inventory versus extra inventory, or targeting different customer groups. But the idea is I only want them to change one thing at a time. So they get out of their system let me just click through everything, because that's their natural inclination.
Yeah.
And the second thing is I want you to think more strategically about changes that you're making and how those changes impact your business.
Yes.
So I just got there. Everything goes on a slideshow of all their work and documentation. So I'm just about to look to see how they did that. And then the next one is much more of the third module is much more of a founder strategy where they're moving to like the intermediate level.
Interesting.
So,
Well, first, kudos for creating a curriculum. That's not easy. I used to be in curriculum development myself, and it's a colossal endeavor. But yeah, no, I'm glad you were able to come up with something that you were able to use startup boards like as a plugin or like as a complement. We one of the like fundamental design choices we made was where every decision you make has an impact, and so it can have either a pro or a con to it, just like in real life, right? And so the gameplay loop, it was meant to force them to experiment like with different choices or different strategies. So I'm really glad that's how you look at it as well.
and I will say, startup boards gets rave reviews. They
Oh,
really like it. And I had one student come in and say, like, I spend more time on it than I probably should. That's like their core academics, but I'm like, that's okay. But they like, of course, I'm biased, but the experience is so different for them. The way they interact with it is just like I said, the feedback they've given has been really positive.
oh,
They just can't get over the fact that they can't make $10,000. That's their big thing.
well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm glad that they're liking it. I mean, in the end, that's what we want. That it has to be educational, but it has to be engaging as well. Like if you focus too educational, it might not be as appealing. But I'm really glad that they've been liking it. It's been a joy to work with you and Don as well. And I guess something also that's really interesting, maybe to know from someone like you, Eric. You've been decades in education. What do you think is going to be like the biggest challenge in the future? Especially for entrepreneurship with AI, in the mix. Have you ever thought about that?
Well, I mean, AI is the easy answer. It's also the cop-out answer. I think it will highlight some of the challenges that education faces. I think it will highlight the fact that not only can we not assess students the way we traditionally assess them, I think even outside of AI, because we're very cognizant of the fact that learners are so divergent, and I'm not even going to use the term neurodivergent. They're just, every kid is a different kind of learner. I think the idea of traditional assessments it just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
I think students will regularly tell you that. Students, when I taught physics, I got rid of like those big unit tests and just had more regular, smaller assessments, some that count, some that didn't count. Students really like that. I think we have to think about the toxic achievement culture.
Oh, absolutely.
On specifically like how much can you achieve and move that back to like the joy of learning. That's one thing I've seen in my career like that has really faded away is like you're not learning for the thing that you really enjoy learning it. And Don and I and the rest of my department, we're always doing something where we're going and learning something, and that's really, to me, that's really good modeling for the students. But I think I go back to the Avenue School, which is, there's one here in New York, and then they have a global network. Their mastery program allows students to work on work on projects for half the day.
Okay.
Certain number of projects during the course of the year. And that's something we're really considering now. How do we do that? I think the rise of micro schools, I think they sort of rise up and then disappear. I think there's a lot of things we can learn from them about education and about how to model education for smaller groups of students. So, I think you can either look at it as a challenge or you can look at it as an opportunity. We're always looking at it as an opportunity. Like Don and I were talking the other day, like, could we brand our department as its own micro school? And
Ah,
looking at the requirements of what it takes to be a micro school, we're actually pretty close.
wow.
So like, but I think I would say this too. There are so many really great educators out there that are doing really great things with really great students.
Yeah.
Just don't think we give them enough credit. Um,
Here, here.
we hear about all the bad stories. We got to focus on the great stuff that people are doing because it's
Yeah.
out there. And you talk. I think the best thing you can ever do is sit at a conference and talk with a group of teachers and find out what they're doing. And it's like it's really really good because 99.9% of the teachers, they know their students. And like I said to one of our new teachers, if you don't know your students, if they don't feel seen by you, everything else is lost.
Yeah.
So I think teachers really take the time to do that. So, but as students become more diverse learners, that becomes more of a challenge.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I'm a frequent Reddit user. Have you ever heard of Reddit or use it?
I picked their brain a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. There's this a subreddit called Teachers, and it's pretty big. I think it's like the biggest teaching subreddit. And if you go in every day, you'll see like so many like negative posts about things that go in the classroom, with students, admin, with parents. But every now and then you'll get a positive story, and it just doesn't seem like it gets the same traction as like the negative story, right? It's like I don't know. I guess the negativity is a more appealing. I don't know what it is, but
Oh, it's easy to complain.
it's easy to complain, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Dawn and I do a lot of workshops for teachers. And I think the greatest compliment, we did one in Philadelphia last year on the creative mindset. And we heard back from one of the teachers in the workshop about a month. She was from Australia, so they were still in school. She said, we're taking the ideas you had and we're turning it into like a creative mindset day.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's like the greatest compliment you can ask from someone. Say like, we took what you did, we remixed it into something that works for us. That's the one thing we always say at our workshops, like, we're not proprietary. You want to take this idea and run with it, go ahead. Like, I will never put anything on teachers pay teachers, because I just think like we're a community of learners, and we find so many great ideas from other people for which I've given them credit. If you're gonna take one of our ideas, just give it. That's what we tell them, like, just credit for it. Like, we don't need anything else. And we always say, like, let us know how it goes. I think that's a compliment you can ask for.
That's very admirable. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I've actually seen some of your work on LinkedIn. I think sometime last year I saw you held a workshop and they had the teachers playing with Legos. Legos, that's so cool. I mean, I've been to a few of those, and even if you don't remember like 100%, like everything you saw in that conference or big event, you do remember those small moments. It just sticks with you. Yeah.
And the most important thing is to give people the Legos to take home.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like, here's your. We do that same workshop for students, like prospective students here. They're like, can we take the Legos? I'm like, yep. Here's a baggie. Off you go. But yeah, we started building that into the workshops that we do. We were introduced to them a little over a year ago. Maybe, I don't remember, but we just felt like it's really important to think about what story you're telling and what story does your curriculum tell.
Yeah.
And the great thing about using Legos is either everybody's used them or they know what they are. It's not like you're giving them new technology. And on a side note, Marymount's celebrating its 100th anniversary centennial this year.
Congrats.
So they asked us as departments, like, what represents your department? Now, we're creative technology. So they assumed they wanted a picture and a written description. They assumed we were going to give a photo of a laptop or some, 3D printer or something like that. So we submitted 2 photos. One was Legos. The other one was Sharpies and Post-it notes. And we got like pushback from them. And it's like, that represents who we are as a department. It's like, it's all about generating ideas and telling stories. It's not about whether you have the latest laptop or the latest iPad. It's not about that. It's not about the technology tools. It's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Technology should be a tool for learning. It shouldn't drive the learning. And that's what oftentimes people think.
Oh, I love that quote.
Yeah. You can quote me on that.
Can I coach you on that? Okay, perfect. I love that, Eric. Thanks so much. It's we're almost out of time here, but and I want to respect your time as well. But I guess one final thing that I'd love to hear from you is what advice would you have maybe for someone like in education who's looking to innovate? Any words of wisdom for us?
Start small.
Okay.
Most important thing. I think a lot of times people have grand ideas and they're great, but that's one thing we do here is anything we like with Startup Wars, we piloted it first with kids to see what their feedback was. They could have said like, we don't like this at all. We'd have been like, okay, well, thank you very much. We'll move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Test I think the most important thing, start small, test things out with your students. Like if they're the end users, let them play with it. If it doesn't land well with them, they're not going to use it. So you can build a really great curriculum around it. And if they're not going to use it, you're not going to get anywhere. When it comes to innovation, we're very lucky that our previous head of school and our current head of school trust us implicitly to do what we want when it comes to designing our curriculum, which is really important.
Yeah.
So one, having the trust of your administration is really good. Second of all, trust your students and trust your teachers. And recognize the fact that failure is an option. Like there are going to be times when I'll give you the classic example. This was years ago. We got a whole bunch of Palm pilots, and it was this no pun pilot program to use them in education. So we had this idea. I was teaching astronomy at the time to have the students. Each student got one. Every night they would go out. They would look in the sky. There was an astronomy app on it. They would record what they saw. They would come in the next day and we would discuss it. Well, the one thing we learned was when the Palm Pilot battery died, all the data they collected disappeared. Oh. They would come in the next day and they'd be like, yeah, all my data's gone. And you're like, okay. So that was a example of something like it just didn't work. And it was like way before its time. But I think that's the most important thing. It's like also have confidence in yourself that you're going to try something. Things are going to work. Things are not going to work. The same for the kids. Like they'll try something and be like, we tried this solution to this problem and it just didn't work. And like, that's okay. So,
okay.
Yeah, it's just like, go for it. That's what Don says the same thing. Just go for it. Figure it out. And don't be afraid to sit around and brainstorm ideas. That's how we figure out what we're doing. Is like, just sit there and talk to people. Like, what do you think about doing this? Okay, well, that might work, might not work, but like we can tweak something to get something a little different.
Amazing. I love that. I love that. I think a lot of success usually comes from failure, right? I mean, it's like with entrepreneurship. If you build a product, it's not going to be set in stone. It might iterate. You have multiple versions, and it might continue evolving every time. But starting with small, simple, and confidence, I think that is very good advice, Eric. Yeah.
We also never use the word learn from failure here. We always say learning's an iterative process.
Oh, okay.
Because the minute you say fail to the kids, they think there's like, I've done something wrong. And it's like, no, you haven't. It's just like you're going to keep iterating on your idea.
Very good point. Yeah. I stand corrected. Wow, that's amazing, Eric. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. This was great.
No, yeah, we love it. We had a very good relationship with Marymount and Don and yourself. We hope to continue with that. And we're here to stay in touch. And if you need anything else, thanks so much.
When the students finish their work for this semester, I'll send it along.
Okay.
So it's much improved from last semester, the work I sent you last semester.
Oh, right.
You're doing better and better.
But
So,
even that was pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
So,
All right.
all right. Thanks so much for the time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, Eric. Thanks
All
so much.